It's already mid-August, and everyone is thinking about back to school. This fall, Holliston has a new high school principal. I am thrilled to welcome David List to the HCAT Holliston Hub studio. Hi, David.
Hi, how are you?
I am great. I'm great. Thanks for coming in, and
Absolutely.
We want to hear about your story. And I think I want to start with, when did you know that you wanted to be an educator?
As I reflect back on my life and my career, I think it really stems from, I knew that I wanted to engage with youth in some way. I'll admit, when I was younger, I wanted to be Indiana Jones. I wanted to be an archaeologist. So that comes with academia, and that really wasn't where I wanted to be at the end of the day. It was that life, but I knew I wanted to engage students in ways that I feel like I didn't have growing up, and so that was through education and through teaching my love of history. And so I think that's really where it stemmed from, was looking at education as a way not just to focus on curriculum, but also to help students develop skills and character as they made their way through school.
And did you do internships, or when you were in high school and college, what turned you on about history and education?
I don't know where my love of history came from. I would just imagine that this is something I connected to in school. I can say that at school it wasn't my greatest accomplishment. High school was not my greatest accomplishment. There weren't internships or anything exciting like that for me. In college, I did have lots of opportunities. I had opportunities to travel the world and travel throughout the Middle East in studying archaeology. I got to travel to South America, so I had lots of travel opportunities. And I was able to do work in some of the schools in the area. But I would say that really, in thinking about when I graduated, it was about how can I impact students, and how can I be impactful to their lives.
What would you say is your greatest accomplishment in your career so far?
Well, my career, as I say, like my personal life was like graduating high school. That was. It sounds weird to think about that, but I would say like graduating high school was a great accomplishment, because I struggled a lot in school, and my father passed away when I was 15, and so I had many challenges that I had to overcome in high school, and so I was thinking about that in terms of like, it sounds odd as greatest accomplishment, but there were many times when it could have gone poorly for me, and so to graduate high school was a great accomplishment in itself. And then I think professionally, just I think in terms of an accomplishment is just the connections I've made with students over my career.
Yeah, so I think that it sounds like you can understand some of the challenges that students are feeling because you've experienced them yourself and overcome them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that, every student walks into the building, and here there's, there'll be 825 different students, and they're all different, and they each all go through their lives, and they each have their own thing going on, and that's something that we have to recognize, and we have to support and help them. It helps them learn to be resilient through those challenges, to reach the next step, whether that be, college or career or military.
Good point. Very good point. What attracted you to Holliston and to this position, other than the obvious ones?
Well, I would say that, so working in Medway for the past 8 years, you start to learn the towns around you. And I know there are students in Medway whose parents work in Holliston. There are teachers in Medway who live in Holliston. And so you get to hear about the community, hear about what it values. And in talking to, before I applied, I made a few phone calls, talked to a few people, and one thing that I heard over and over again was people's love and support for the school. And within that, the town's love and support for the school. And I really wanted to be somewhere where that was, that was evident and that was happening, and also a place that was really striving to focus on students' well-being, both academically and social-emotionally, a place where students felt safe and teachers were passionate about their work like I had in Medway. And so I wanted to be able to go to that type of community, and Holliston really provided that for me.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Yeah. What do you think are the three, you don't even have to give me three, most important qualities of a successful high school principal?
I mean, I think first you have to be willing to listen. You have to really be able to really listen. People's voices matter. A school is a community of lots of different stakeholders, and so you really need to understand, and you can only do that through listening. That would be number one, and in order to move anything forward, to build on what we have, you have to be a listener and understand what values people have, what they're thriving to create, and help to build that through the conversations. I would say, secondly, is really being collaborative.
Yes.
You know, it's a community effort, and that means collaborative with all stakeholders. That's with students, that's with teachers, that's with parents, that's with community organizations. It really takes that community to do it, and so you need to be able to bring in stakeholders again to make sure that you're hearing diverse voices, that you're hearing about the experience. Again, it kind of goes back to the listening piece, but you know, you're collaborative moving forward, because there's even if you have a vision of something, it's not going to happen without the buy-in of those around you, and so that's important, and that comes through the values that exist within the community and the school. And finally, I would say that it really, most importantly, is that everything that we do is really student-centered. We have to ask ourselves the question, well, what is best for students? What does every decision we're making? You know, we have to ask ourselves about equity, and we have to ask ourselves, is it best for students? And that's probably the most important and sort of, I guess, quality that I would say.
How would you use collaboration specifically to impact the high school? Give me an example of.
Well, I think in terms of when you're talking about impact of school, right? So in year one, I'm coming in as a listener. I'm coming in as an observer.
Yep.
Obviously, there are the day-to-day things that have to be done, but you come in as an observer because you're coming into a community. It's a really interesting place to be in when you're walking into a school that has such a rich history and rich traditions, and so you really have to observe and listen and meet people and see what's going on. So, and then that allows you to, and then coming in, you have a different view, new eyes on things, and so you really and ask questions and see things and how they operate, and you kind of work from there to then collaborate with others.
I like the idea that you recognize that a fresh view is always a valuable point of reference. That's a great idea. Yeah. And then let's talk about a day in the life of a principal at Holliston High School, okay? What do you think is your most important contribution to daily life here? Where do you see yourself impacting? Just everywhere.
I mean, I think in general, it's about being present and available for those who are there. As I said before, you're in a community of teachers and students, and what you have to recognize in leadership is to any individual that you're working with, that at that moment the conversation with you is the most important thing, or what they're asking you is the most important thing to that person. And so the goal is really to give voice to teachers and to students. It's to ask questions that ensure that we're providing an equitable experience for students. And it's really, I think, in year one, it's about learning. To then work with teachers, work with the district office, and work with other stakeholders to determine, sort of what's next and what happens. But that really can't be done on an island alone. It doesn't work that way. So I think day to day, it's really being visible and being a part of the whole school community.
So you see yourself in the lunchroom?
I spent lots of time there in Medway, so I don't know why that would change. But it's one of the few places that you can actually get a chance to, whether students like it or not, whether bothering them in the lunchroom or not. But that's that's part of the gig is being in the lunchroom and understanding and talking to students, and that's it's one of the few times where you can have a sort of relaxed sort of space environment to talk to the students. So it's a nice place to be.
Absolutely, that's great. Now, you initiated something very exciting here. You're talking a lot about listening, and you actually made that happen because you've put together 20-minute conversations with people. How's that going? And what kind of priorities have you maybe established as a result of your listening so far? I know you're early in the game, but what sticks out the most in all these conversations of a priority you'd like to address?
I mean, I think those conversations are really there so that I can learn the community, learn what's important to the community, and learn what's happening with students, with staff, with families, different stakeholders within the broader community. So it's really a chance to learn. I can't say that I come out, with, oh, this is the priority here or this is the priority there. What I can say is that, there is a passion for the school from the parents. There is a passion in the school from the teachers. The students feel safe. Those that I've talked to feel safe here and feel as though that it's a welcoming community for them. And so I want to continue those pieces. It's really more about replicating the strengths and what's worked than change in general. And in the conversations, what we continue to hear over and over again are how do we make sure that number one, the kids are safe, both physically and emotionally in the building, and that's got to always be a priority. But I wouldn't say there's 1, 2, 3 things that I hear that I'm like, this has to change or this has to happen, but more it's about understanding the strengths within a building and then trying to replicate those throughout the building for all students.
That seems like a very good way to come, because we've come along. Our school is strong, and but we all want to make it better.
Absolutely.
How about communicating to families both with and without children, and also the public and private sectors here? Do you have any thoughts on how you would communicate what's happening at the high school with those areas in town? Because I'm a person who doesn't have a kid in the school, and tell me what I should know about the school. Why should I?
Well, I don't know that I know yet, so I'm still learning. So I don't know that I have the answer there for what you should know.
What do you visualize as communication?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to ensure that there's clear communication to families, and then that's step one about what's happening in the school, who they contact to answer questions. I think a lot of times it can be overwhelming and confusing.
Definitely.
School in general, and so it's really about creating an environment where people know where to go, what to look for, who to call. And then on top of that, it's about partnering with organizations, partnering with institutions. So it's making sure that the cable studio, if they have something where they announce things going on or bulletin boards going on, that they know what's happening in the school. It's partnering with all the organizations in town, whether it be I can only speak for Medway, right? Like my experience there, if there are veteran groups in town, if there's groups in town to partner with and give opportunities through the police and fire, local news outlets, finding businesses that want to host interns for students and finding those opportunities. And when we have showcase opportunities, whether that be through what students are working on in classrooms or through the fine and performing arts, those opportunities, those invitations and those pieces go out to the various community organizations and the community as a whole. So.
I like the way you used invitation. I think that's a great way to look at inviting the community in that don't have kids in the school, and there's a myriad of ways to do that. Obviously, social media, and TV, local access. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So in terms of, this is a hard one, and I'm sure you know this. You experienced this a lot through your career, but the challenge between teaching to the test and encouraging children to learn qualitative skills, like working as a team. So what could be done to make that balance? If there's a balance here at Holliston High, what can be done to make that even better? What should be your experience with that challenge?
So I think we have this idea that there's like two options, right? That there's like this you have one or two options. You can either teach to the test or you can't. And the reality is that we're given standards. In every course we teach, there are standards provided by the state. And in theory, those standards, which we cover, are then on the state test. So in theory, you're not teaching to the test, but the standards that we have to teach are then on something like the MCAS test. And then there are classes like the AP classes where those end with a test that could possibly get you credit, and there's some learning to be done on how do you take those type of tests. So ultimately, what's really important is that we are teaching the standards that the state requires us, but then also using things like the vision of the graduate, which has been developed over the past 3 years, which really delves into the student who leaves Holliston High School. What are all the skills and attributes and values that they have going out into the world, into whatever they do, and it's balancing those out. And I think from what I understand, Holliston does a very nice job of balancing those and including the focus on the whole student, and that's really important. But ultimately, teaching to a test is more about teaching test-taking skills than it is about the actual items on a test. And we have to recognize that our students are asked to do some things that that is a skill, the test-taking skill, I guess. But ultimately, it's about the whole student and how can we, following state standards, really teach the whole child versus thinking about it just as teaching to the test versus not teaching to the test.
Right. And so you've been saying something that I also think people like to hear is, a student may not be always college bound. You need to look at all of that whole spectrum of students who and give them the tools to access what their skills and gifts are later in life.
Absolutely. I mean, I know we have a wonderful opportunity for students to do internships through Sue Stone, the college and career counselor. I remember walking in and doing my first tour of the building and seeing the students are building a tiny house out back at the school, and getting to see how many teachers offer these wonderful elective classes that they're passionate about, that they get those opportunities. So I think really there's so many ways to engage students, and Holliston is doing a wonderful job of finding those ways, and hopefully we can continue to grow that and find more ways to engage students in various avenues to help them find their passions.
Great. So we have this current strategic plan and school improvement plan. And I'm sure you put that under your pillow every night and read it.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about what some of the specific efforts are this year to address some of those goals? Or maybe...
Yeah, I mean, I think we all work together as an entire district, right?
Yeah.
You have that strategic plan that guides you, and that's developed over time through the conversation with many, many stakeholders, right? And what comes out of that, and I think some things that we look at and some things we talked about already are the communication piece, making sure that we are clear in our communication, that we are casting a wide net with our communication and regular communication to folks. That's something that sort of stands out to me. It's about equity. It's about making sure that there are diverse voices being heard. It's making sure there's an equity of experience for students, and that students have access to all of the opportunities that exist at Holliston High School. And I think those filter down, right? So those come from the district, and then those filter down within each of the schools in a myriad of ways. And it's important to have those guideposts that you're sort of striving to work towards, because otherwise you're kind of frantic running in many different directions. So those are it's wonderful to have those, and in my work so far with teachers and conversations that there is common goals and there are common values that exist in this community, and that's nice to see and nice to walk into.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and I just think that communication keeps coming up in our conversation, and I think that you're going to make that happen.
High school can be overwhelming for a lot, not just for the students, but for the parents, for the community, for everybody. And so it's really about opening those lines of communication and over communicating so people know what's happening, know what's going on, and know who to talk to.
Great. So listen, now let's talk about the fun stuff, okay?
Right.
Now this is all these family, children, pets. Tell us about yourself.
They don't have any pets. I'm not home enough to take care of a pet. My wife is also a school administrator.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So we have those lives which don't keep us home very much. And then she's a school administrator in Needham. And then I have my son Nathaniel, who's 12, and who is a baseball player, loves baseball, and he snowboards and plays flag football. And then my daughter Emma, who's 9, who does everything she can get her hands on, from softball to basketball to dance to she's doing flag football. She needs to be kept busy all the time. And they are both wonderful, and they're both at camp. I actually picked them up tomorrow. So they've been away they've both been away for 7 weeks. So
oh wow,
yeah, it's sleepaway camp, so they'll be home tomorrow.
Yep. So. Wow. Well, it sounds like your days are really full, keeping up with all those sports plus the sports in both
Absolutely.
in Needham and Holliston and everything else. Long days, long days.
It is, but it's worth it. I mean, I think one of the pieces that, that has to be kept in mind is that our teachers have families and we all have families. And so I've been fortunate to be in school districts where that's valued. And, I love the fact that I can make time to go to my son's baseball games, and at the same time, my family can join me on Friday nights at the football games, and that's been, I would say that my kids thought they were going to Medway High School since they were little, because they spent so much time there, and the kids got to know them, and I'd find my daughter, she's not a cheerleader, but would somehow be on top of a pyramid at the football games, and those.
Wow.
So I really do believe that that there is the ability to balance life, and then also to bring your life into the life of the school where you are, and so that's exciting for me.
Great. Favorite movie?
Indiana Jones were always mine. Not the newest ones, but those were my favorites. The first movie I saw in the theater, and it's been one of my favorites. But I'd say the movie that gets played most often in my house is The Sandlot by my son over and over and over again. Loves that movie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Indiana Jones. What do you think about the newest one?
It was terrible, but it's not very good.
I agree.
It was not very good.
Yeah.
But the first 3 were amazing.
You got to hand it to him, though. He can really do a role.
Yes, absolutely, and that he's able to do it for so long is awesome. So.
Yeah, I always like seeing Sean Connery in that thing, too.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. How about favorite sports team?
So most of my life I grew up in South Carolina, but I spent a few years in Chicago, and so I have an allegiance to all of the Chicago sports teams for being there in elementary school. But then we moved to South Carolina. There were no pro sports teams there, so I became a South Carolina college sports fan.
Oh, sure.
So my allegiance is to the Chicago sports team. I tried to get my son and daughter to follow that, but they're Boston sports fans. I couldn't make them go with me. So
good choice.
I went with my wife. So.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice. How about your best vacation that you've ever had?
Best vacation I've ever had. I think the best, I think one of my favorite, I've been very fortunate in the ability to travel a lot, and I think probably my honeymoon because we just got to escape, but we got to travel all throughout South America.
Wow.
For my honeymoon, so that was a lot of fun to do, kind of just escape everything and just go through different countries and do that. So that probably stands out. So.
Cool. Which country was the most surprising to you in South America?
I don't know if it was surprising, but I know that we kind of did just different activities and different things in each place that we went to, and so I think it was really neat to be able to see the variety of geography that exists when you go through a place like Chile, and you can go from down the coast, and then you end up in mountains, and you end up in the glacial south, and so I think. And then we went through like wine country in Argentina, and so like the vast array of what the continent has to offer was just sort of amazing to see.
Would you ever go back?
Oh, I'd love to go back. It'd be amazing.
Would that be your dream vacation, to go back there?
So I've never been to Asia. I've never been to China or Japan or Vietnam, and I'd love to go. I'd love to go there and explore. So.
Exciting. Yeah. So, as a final word, what would you like to say to our community and here in Holliston?
I just want to say that I'm excited to be here. I'm
That's
really,
obvious.
yeah, I am.
Yeah.
It's really amazing to be entrusted with the community's high school and with the students, and I am very thankful to be at a place, as I said before, that is really supportive of the school. As I talk to folks in town, I talk to school committee members, talk to the teachers, it's very clear that the town supports the school, and that's amazing, and comes through with what the school needs. And I am hopeful that through my time in Holliston, that we continue to thrive and continue to grow and to be a place that is welcoming to all. And I continue to encourage folks to set up meetings with me, because I just love getting to know. I think a lot of times, elementary school parents are really involved, a little bit less in middle school, and in high
Right.
school they just kind of drop them off, and my kids don't want me involved, but I want parents to be involved. I want parents to engage with what's happening here, and so hopefully we'll have those opportunities more and more. But I'm just really thankful to have the opportunity, and I'm excited for the kids to be here in 2 weeks.
Great.
So,
Thank you for that, David.
thank you for having me.
For Heartbeat of Holliston, this is Chryso Lawless.